Today on the podcast, we have Hilary Boynton. She is the author of the Heal Your Gut Cookbook, mother of five, and founder of School of Lunch, a culinary training academy teaching nutrient-dense ancestral cooking and how to implement scratch cooking into schools. After healing her family through the GAPS protocol when modern medicine failed, she became a leading voice in real food education and school lunch reform. Today, she trains lunch leaders across the country to rebuild children's health through scratch cooking and local food systems. So let's tune in to hear her mission to disrupt the trend of chronic illness in kids and their families. I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to who have done a laundry list of diets and supplements, and they are still so confused about their health, dealing with chronic fatigue, chronic pain, and chronic symptoms still. At Nutrition with Confidence, we do not believe in quick fixes. We help you bio-individualize your diet and lifestyle recommendations and walk you through a step-by-step process that helps you to rebuild your body and calm your nervous system through it. This helps you regain control of your health and build confidence in your ability to heal. If you're interested in finally getting to the roots of your chronic symptoms, schedule a free exploration call at Nutrition. Thank you so much today for joining me, Hilary. I remember the first time I heard your story, it was on the Wise Traditions podcast, and I never thought that today I would have a podcast and I'd get to interview you. So thank
Aw,
you.
thank you for
Thank you.
having me. I really love your podcast. I've been listening, going down the rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, this is so good. It's an honor to be here.
Yay, great. Well, I would love because we have a GAPS synergy here where you have amazing healing story utilizing one of my favorite protocols, the GAPS protocol. So please share your story, your healing story.
My GAPS journey. Well, it's actually interesting because I'm doing the GAPS coaching course right now. So I'm on stage 3 GAPS intro right now because you have to do the intro as part of the coaching course. And it's been like 10 or 11 years since I have done the actual intro. So it's really nice to be back.
Cool.
It's really nice because it just takes you back to like ground zero, super in touch with yourself and like your microbes, everything, right? So, so how I got to GAPS originally was, my journey started with, falling for the fat-free fad in high school and really being rigid about that for a good 10 years of my life. So I had stress fractures in my both femurs and both tibias as an athlete, senior in high school. I was on Accutane twice. I was basically like burning my body to the brink and replenishing with like fat-free junk. Like just thinking about like my daughter was asking me today, I was like, so many things have changed. She's 22. I'm like, we didn't have like Starbucks and like what were the other things I was saying? I can't remember, but all the things that are like, normalized now. Back then it was like bagels and like fat-free what am I saying? Trying to say the ice cream, frozen yogurt, fat-free
Yeah.
frozen yogurt. It was like a daily,
Yes.
it was like it's fat-free, we can have it all. And it's just like a giant sugar bomb.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just basically replenishing with sugar and didn't know anything about like, metabolic health and insulin and all those things. So I just continued on and thought I wanted to design my own major of nutrition and fitness. I was a soccer player in college, Division 1 athlete. And so I was like super into nutrition, thought I had all the answers and so glad that they didn't let me design my own major because I probably would have just gone down the wrong path and
Mm.
not discovered what I have discovered since having to kind of go through the pain of getting really sick. So I graduated from college and got married at 25, and then at 26 found myself pregnant, and then had a miscarriage shortly thereafter. And that was super devastating because I didn't really even know what a miscarriage was. I'd never heard
Yeah.
anybody talk about it. And I went on to have like 4 more miscarriages over the next 3 years and couldn't
Wow.
understand why at like such a young age my body couldn't hold a pregnancy. Now it's quite clear that I was like super deficient. And no one talked to me about my diet. It was just like, we'll do like all these drug interventions. Then I ended up doing in vitro and I ended up getting pregnant with triplets.
Wow.
So that was a blessing. It was like two boys and a girl, 3 years of infertility, three babies. You know, it's like looking back, they just turned 22 like the day after Thanksgiving. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know how I survived that. And then I'm like, how did I write this book with like all these children underneath me? And like I don't even know how it happened. It was some sort of like divine alignment. The stars aligned. But
Mm,
and then I went on, so I was like kind of waking up. I wanted to like feed them well, and I would start to buy organic things, but it was like if it said organic, then it was, a check for me. Like even though it could be like pirate booty or,
right.
cereal that are like puffs or whatever. And then I thought maybe we should have one more baby, and boom, I got pregnant on my own, and he was born, and when he was 6 months old, I was pregnant again with my fifth baby naturally. So all of a sudden I had five babies under four. And my fourth baby was the impetus for change. He was the one covered head to toe in eczema. And
Oh,
so I was like, oh my gosh, like, and then when we had the fifth baby, I'm like, if this baby has eczema, like, I don't know if I can survive this. Like, it was so, I'm sure some of your listeners have kids with eczema or have had it themselves. And it's just like this horrible thing. They're just scratching all the time, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. I'm doing all the allergy tests and the prick tests and eliminating everything because I was nursing him, and
hmm,
nothing was really working. And finally, this one doctor said, you've got to put him on steroid cream and Zyrtec twice a day. Like he's suffering. And I really didn't want to do that. Like my intuition was like, no, like I want to try to heal him, but I listened to him and I put him on the conventional meds, and sure enough, his eczema cleared. I used to have to like pin him to my body for 2 hours every night. And so this was like all of a sudden he was sleeping through the night and like
yeah,
not scratching. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I probably should have done this a long time ago.
yeah.
But then slowly I would see that like if I didn't put the steroid cream on, it would just
Come
rear
back.
its ugly head again and he'd be scratching again. So I'm like, this is not a fix. This is not the getting to the root cause, it's just a band-aid.
Hmm.
So then I had discovered, so ironically was trying to change school lunches back then in Massachusetts. And this woman that I got introduced to, she was like, I'll jump back in the ring if you want to try. Like, it's such a brutal effort, but maybe we can do it. And so I went to her house and she started giving me these like pamphlets and brochures and journals from this Weston Price Foundation and talking about this guy. And I'm like, what is she talking about? And I had told her about my son with eczema, and she just blurted out, like, you've got to put him on raw milk. And her son, she had healed of asthma with raw milk. And I was like,
Yeah.
what's raw milk? Like, I'd never heard of it. And I was drinking my like fat-free skim milk. And I was so desperate at that point that I'm like, I'll try anything. She's like, we go to this co-op and we can get your stuff for you. Anyway, so I put him on raw milk, cod liver oil, and boom, he was like completely healed in a matter of a couple months. So that was my like journey of like, aha, like what just
Mm,
happened? Like real food just healed my son. And I went
mm.
down hard in the rabbit hole. I'm sure your audience is probably familiar with the Weston Price Foundation. But I can go deeper into that if you want.
Go for it. I
Okay,
think
so
we have talked about it, but it's always good to,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
briefly.
I went to like a conference like shortly after I'd been introduced to the foundation, and Sally Fallon started this foundation based on the work of Dr. Weston A. Price, who was a dentist in the 20s and 30s in Ohio, and he was noticing like more cavities and crooked teeth and narrowing of the jaw, and people were like just more sickly, and he wanted to know why, and he and his wife went on an excursion, a decade-long excursion across the globe to all these little non-industrialized pockets of tribal people, little villages where he found people. He was looking for perfect health, and he found people thriving free of disease. Beautiful, broad bone structure, perfectly straight teeth, no
Mm,
cavities, no heart disease, no cancer, just like thriving from the Swiss Alps to the Aborigines to the Maasai, all across the board. And so they had these common factors, these nutrient-dense foods. They focused on the fat-soluble vitamins, and they had fertility diets. Like imagine that.
yeah.
So when I heard Sally Fallon speak and she's putting these pictures up there, I'm sitting there drinking like my Starbucks latte, still just kind of like in the weeds. And I was just like, what? Like everything she said just made so much sense. And these people were thriving. And then one generation removed, when in came the roads and white flour and white sugar and processed foods, in came the narrowing of the jaw and the crooked teeth and the cavities. And now we're like 10 decades out from his research, and we have 54% of our kids or more with a chronic disease, and 92, I think 92% of our population is metabolically unhealthy. So you can imagine like the modernized foods that were coming in the 20s and 30s, like those are like good foods in today's in today's state,
Right?
and they
They're
were
like,
causing problems. And now it's like, oh my gosh, just the destruction of what is considered food, right? So,
mhm.
so I had my aha moment. I was teaching cooking classes out of my home, and a woman in my class was also on the GAPS. Oh, so like shortly thereafter, we had this medical intuitive tell us that like our whole family needed the GAPS diet. We were a wreck, and I had heard Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, who's the founder of it, speak at Weston Price, and I was a little bit like, like I know this is an intense protocol, but we were all in. At this point, I was like, we have to do this. This is a moment, and we ventured into the GAPS diet. And this woman in my cooking class was also on the GAPS diet, Mary Brackett, who's a photographer, and she ended up saying like we should do a cookbook, and so we collaborated, and we wanted to create this beautiful guide because Natasha's book is brilliant, but I'm like such a visual learner, and I needed
Yeah.
like step by step. So we created this kind of roadmap to show people that you can curl up in bed and look at these beautiful pictures and say, oh my gosh, I can eat beautiful, delicious foods and still heal.
Yeah.
So we created that. And then as I turned that over to the publisher, my husband was diagnosed with cancer, throat cancer, and that just like elevated our whole journey to the next level of like
Wow.
facing life and death. And I knew so much about the immune system at this point, and could tell that he had been, was inflamed and just needed to like really basically detox and like clean up everything. And so, um, without going too far down that rabbit hole, that ultimately brought us from Massachusetts to California, and to get out of stress and get into the sunshine and a more alternative way of healing. And that's where we stumbled upon this little nature-based school, that it was just like 30 kids, and the chef there, it was literally my husband's first day out of bed, and she was like, oh yeah, we just like caught our own fish today, and I really want to roast a whole goat for the kids. And I'm like, she's like, what? Like this lady totally gets it. She knew of Weston Price, and I gave her my book. So anyway, so I was like, we have to go to this school. We moved to Topanga and get our triplets into the school. And then as the school grew, they outsourced the food. And that's where I was just like, oh shoot, like this isn't
Mm.
aligned with like how I want my kids to be fed, and not aligned with nature. And so I ended up taking over as the snack coordinator, and then just like went to town, and then halfway through the school year took over the lunch program and became a lunch lady, which I never thought that would be my destiny, but here I am like 10 years in as a lunch lady at my kids' school. And we believe we honestly have like the most nutrient dense school lunch program in the country. So that's like where we are. So that's how I kind of got through gaps, and then ended up stepping into the role of a lunch lady as to kind of give that foundation to these kids as young as possible and get them, knowing what it feels like to feel good, setting them up with balanced microbiomes and all that.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much to unpack there because one, I love your Heal Your Gut cookbook. That's the title of your cookbook. And
Right.
it's right. Is
Yeah.
that? Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Feel good.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get that wrong. Um, and it's beautiful. And that is something that a lot of people want is inspiration. And even if, some of my clients can't eat all of the different because of what other kinds of styles of protocols that we might
Mhm.
interweave with
Yeah.
for individualization, they can adapt, those recipes, and
Yeah.
the inspiration is there. And it's ultimately that's the goal for so many of my clients is to keep broadening the diet so that
Yeah.
eventually they can have things like seasonal tomatoes and
Yeah.
like all of the which contain some lectins that might be
Yeah.
problematic at a period potentially.
Well, there's like so much that has evolved, and people are more sick, right? So
Yes.
since I wrote the book, it's like there's the like, now no plant gaps and keto gaps and all the different things because everyone is so different. And that's really what Natasha talks about is like you have to tune in ultimately to your body and what works
Mhm.
for you. And that's what's so beautiful. Like as you go through stages, if something doesn't work, you're like, oh, okay, that's not right for me right now, right now. So
Yeah.
go stay here and then continue to heal and then keep reintroducing. So it
Yeah.
just gives you that like real clear map of like what's working for you or what's not working.
Yeah. So, how was it for you to do the GAPS protocol with five children? Like, how did you do that?
Honestly, like today, I'm like, how the heck did we do this? Like I'm struggling like now. I'm like, oh my God, I'm eating the same thing all day. Like I just haven't been in this world. I'm like, but it was like I have Thanksgiving, four birthdays, and Christmas in less than a month. So
Mm.
it's like my kids were just here for Thanksgiving. Then it's like the triplets' birthday. Then it's the next. So then I literally the day they left, I like started Gap. So I was like,
Mm.
I went from eating like a big, like beautiful mac and cheese, like homemade mac and cheese, like the night before with my kids, and then like, boom, Gap stage one. So I'm like, and then I'm working, so I'm just like, like trying to like make all my meat stocks, and of course going through them so fast, and so I think it was that I was really like, I think it was Monica saying on your, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was not on your podcast, but I heard her talking, Monica Corrado, who's the Gap
Mhm.
chef, like do it when your kids are young. Because I mean, now my youngest is 17, and like I can't even imagine. Like my kids are just like, no way, like we're not doing that. Like as the older they get, unless they're really sick and have something that is ailing them and they're in pain, they might want to go that way. But when your kids are young, you have control. And like
Mm.
you have to have full buy-in from like, both parents. And then you like basically corral the kids and like, this is what's happening. And we're
Yeah.
just doing this as a family. I don't know how you do it otherwise, unless it's just
Mhm.
like, if you have one kid, it's hard. It's hard. So you have to really make it fun and enjoyable and just I don't know, like reading my stories back again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember that. And it
Yeah.
just seems like so long ago, but it was like I was home with them. I wasn't working, so I could
Hmm. Hmm.
focus my day around like sourcing my food and making um and it's all very simple.
They're
Like
very simple
trained chef.
recipes.
I've never worked like in a commercial kitchen. I've never been to culinary school. So all the recipes in there are just like whatever I figured out to like feed my family, you
Yeah.
know? So they're very simple and basic. And that's what I'm just gonna open the door here. That's what I love about
Yeah.
Gaps is it really is simple. And we say at School of Lunch, we say simplicity is gourmet. Like when I
It
came
is.
to California, my book published the next week or the next day that after I arrived and I didn't know anybody. And it was like almost like I was like a Weston Price because I landed from this small colonial town in
Ah.
Massachusetts. All of a sudden I landed in LA where there's like people from all over the world. And so I met all these people with accents. I would just say, where did you grow up and how did you eat growing up? And then I'd show 'em my book and they're like, this is how we ate growing up and we were never sick. So,
Wow.
and then they were seeing their kids and their grandkids sick and going, with the American way and whatnot. But one of my elders, my French elder, said, don't forget, simplicity is gourmet. So it's one of our taglines because it's so true.
It
Don't
is.
have to overthink it. And
Mm-hmm.
meat stocks are like so easy to make.
Mm-hmm. And you
I
can
mean, so
you
easy.
can make it diversified with different flavors.
Yeah.
There's so many, but to have these templates basically that you can adapt and like adapt to yourself and your
Yeah.
own preferences of flavor. That is a common thing of with kids being kind of picky. Were your kids really picky, or were they just okay? Mom's doing this.
No, they
I'm gonna eat what
definitely
she
had
gave me.
their moments. My son was recalling the other day, like, you used to make us eat liver all the time. I'm like, I did not. Like, there was one moment that, you have that moment and then that just like sticks in their brain where I did like chicken livers wrapped in bacon. Like, I don't even know if we were still on Gaps, but I was like, I grew up having to eat that. And so I was like, come on, come on. And you want them to love it. And like a couple of them liked it. And then like those who didn't, like really didn't like it.
Yeah.
So my kids are like, they understand the importance of organ meat. So they're just like, just put it in like the bolognese sauce or put it in like burgers. Like we don't want to eat straight liver. My daughter, on the
Yeah.
other hand, it's like her favorite food. So they're all so different. Like when we make pate, she's literally jumping up and down. Like she's just like, I can have this for breakfast. Like she's not,
Yeah.
a typical kid that
Makes.
way, but she's got a really trained palate. She craves those nutrient dense foods. So,
Hmm.
so
Was
but
she? Oh,
she,
well, you had
yeah,
triplets first, so I was gonna
she
say,
was
was
the
she your
triplet.
first? Okay.
She's the oldest. She's yeah,
Yeah.
the oldest triplet.
Okay. Maybe she got all those first nutrients and was like kind of more
Maybe. I know. It's so interesting
more
to,
resilient.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. The other question that I like to ask with people who are you're in the GAP certification program, this is the common question and challenge is how to make enough meat stock, right? And keep up with that uh and you have figured out how to do this in large scale, maybe not meat stock, but other
Home broth.
really traditional foods like fermented foods, maybe even in for publics or schools, we'll just say
Yeah, for
schools,
school. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the what are the best ways for people to prepare? What are some like one or two tips that you would teach to give someone some more confidence with like, okay, I can do this. I can integrate this into my life. And how does that integrate?
Yeah. I mean, once you get your systems in place, I feel like that's where the freedom comes. And you have to ultimately earn your street cred, right? Like so many people don't know how to cook. And so you have to decide that it's important to you. And unless you had like a grandmother or mother who was passionate or from another country and they like were always in the kitchen, like my mom was not that mom. And so
Yeah.
most of us were not taught how to cook. So you have to like accept that fact that we don't, we're not proficient really, and we don't know how to like have that comfort zone quite yet, but you get it through just getting in there. So if you decide that you want to learn and you just step in and start creating, then it gets easier and easier each time you do it. You
Mhm.
just you build, it's like flexing it's like training the muscle, right? So we quickly started after we started the school lunch program, we realized that everybody wanted to know how to cook this way, like the teachers and different people in the community. And so we started our School of Lunch Training Academy, where we train people on the systems and all the food from soaking and sprouting your nuts and seeds and beans and legumes to making sourdough to raw dairy and fermented raw dairy and fermenting vegetables and bone broths, meat stocks, organ meats. We take them to the farmers markets, and then we do all the lifestyle things with breath work and cold plunge and movement and sunshine and sleep and all the things. So we like give people like everything in a 5-night intensive. So that's our training academy that we run in the summertime when we're not doing the school lunch program. But for the average person who's just at home trying to build their confidence, I would just say start with one thing. Like I always say, just learn to roast a chicken. Like if
Mhm.
you can learn to roast a chicken, then you can turn that into a bone broth, or you can even make a meat stock, right? Just you can use your whole chicken and put that right in there. And that's the meat stocks are actually quite easy because it's just 2 to 3 hours,
Mhm.
depending if you're meat or chicken, maybe three to
Mhm.
six hours, versus like a bone broth, which is like overnight or 12 to 24. And then you have to like strain all the bones. And that's like my least favorite part of bone broth is like straining it and having to, because it's always like
Yes.
nighttime or something when I don't want to have to like figure out what I'm going to do with the bones. But um,
It's so true.
right? And the meat stuff, you just leave it all in there and it's a meal and everything. You can just like eat right from the pot, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
So making enough meat stock, I would suggest having two. Like I have like a beef, um, I had some beef shanks that I made a meat stock with, and then I just made a chicken. So it kind of in like rotation. And like yesterday, I literally, and then I made a carrot ginger soup with the meat stock, the
Hmm.
beef one. And so I had that for a couple meals yesterday then, and because I had kind of OD'd on chicken before. So then I was like, okay, now I can go back. Now chicken sounds really good again. So then I'm like back to chicken. So you're
Cool.
just kind of getting that rotation. But
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of all the other things, like the systems, I'm not really a systematic mom where I have like my menus planned out for the week. I'm more like fly by the seat of my pants. I get inspired by whatever I have. And I've gotten really good at just throwing together super simple things. Like I just don't overcomplicate it, and I don't try to make like,
Hmm.
Food Network things. Like if anything has too many ingredients, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
So it's like get a good protein, some veg smothered with butter, nice salad with a good salad dressing,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what we do at school. We have like really good proteins, and we have our systems of like we might have a pasta on a Monday, but it's like with meats with organs in it. And then Tuesday we might roast chickens and serve a chicken and rice with veg, and then we take those bones and turn them into a bone broth. And then Wednesday might be like a shepherd's pie or enchilada pie, some sort of composed thing.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday we prep like a pork shoulder or chuck roll. So we salt it on Wednesday and we cook that all day Thursday, slow and low. And that's Friday's meal is a pulled pork or shredded beef. And then the bone broth is usually ready by Wednesday. So then Thursday we do soup, salad, focaccia. So we always making, so we just kind of have this like flow, and then we can like make our
Mm,
ferments and have all the other things that we integrate in there, and whatever seasonal with is our side veg.
that's
And then we
awesome.
make our beans with ham hocks and pig's
Hmm.
ears and all those fun things, or trotters, and make things. And then we do a really super nutrient dense snack too. So we often serve bone broth for snack in
Mm,
the winter months.
hmm.
So they get like, cheese and salami, and we soak and dehydrate all of our nuts and stuff like that. So we make trail mix
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, but it's like we have a good system, so we're able to pull off a lot.
That's huge. Going back to the simple, I think that's huge to get behind. I'm also the very similar with not liking meal plans, and
Yeah,
just because it takes a little bit of the flexibility that you need out of, okay, I have to make this meal this day.
right. I
And
planned it.
yes, because I planned it, I bought the ingredients, but how okay, one of the things that I notice is with that, you end up wasting so much food because making not enough of the food that you really need. So I'm a huge advocate for batch cooking, large batches. Anytime you cook, make double of what you're gonna
Yeah.
make. And then just only like one or two vegetables. You don't
Yeah,
need.
because you don't want to like I mean, we say cook once, eat several times, right? That is like king. And if you make a good, like when we slow roast a pork shoulder, we have meals for like 3 days. Lunch, dinner. When I have teenagers now, so they can come in and grab it, make a
Mhm.
little taco, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like super easy, and time does all the work. And that's where like it is really important to have communication with whoever else is in the house, like your spouse or your kids, whatever, because I say like feeding the family usually falls on the shoulders of one, and it's usually the mom, and often we're working, and it's like then you might have a sick kid, and or you're sick yourself, and it just gets, and you don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
So if you can start to make it more of a family affair and bring in like my partner Chuck, he's like a meat distributor. He like he we were like a host of like a meat place at our back our garage is all like fridges and
Full
freezers.
of meat.
People come get everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'll be like, I'll take a chuck roll out and I'll salt it and then like throw it in the oven. And then the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, we have like, chuck roll done. And then I can put together a meal with that.
Mm.
But sometimes, how many times their parents been like, our mom's been like, oh shoot, I forgot to take that out of the freezer. Like, what else do we have? The other advice is one of my chefs at the school, she's from Iran and she calls it based on fridge. And I'm like, we're like a no waste kitchen at school. And I think it's so fun to utilize everything. And so if you just open your fridge sometimes, you're like, okay, I have this, and I have this. And leftovers, like you can throw together a nutrient dense meal in no time. I mean, leftovers are so helpful. So,
Yes.
and when you're invested, like sometimes with like working at the school, now we have shoppers who go to the farmers markets, and Chuck will be shopping around and stuff. But for me, I'm like, if I am the one who shops, then I'm like invested. I know what I've bought. I know what inspired me. I'm
Yes.
like wanting to cook that meal that, if I see beautiful eggplants and I want to make this eggplant dish from the Heal Your Gut cookbook, then I'm going to make it because I bought it and I like had that inspiration.
Yeah.
So when you're removed from the stages of shopping and prepping and all that, then you're less likely, I feel like, to actually want to cook. But when you've spent the money and you've looked at the farmer in the eye, like we had this woman come who makes the most beautiful breads she's from France, and they have this like incredible way of milling the flours. It's all whole grain. And she said it's a year from growing to making the bread, to growing to harvesting to making the bread. So she's like, we don't throw away any bread. And that's how I feel like we are. Like we don't throw away anything. We save all of our scraps from carrots, onions, and celery and put that in our bone broths, and we compost everything. And it's super gratifying because there's a
Mm.
lot of work and there's a lot of money that goes into sourcing
Hmm.
good quality foods. And then you look at when you meet your farmers, you know how much time and effort and integrity was put into your food, and or an
Exactly.
animal that lost their life for your
Mhm.
nourishment. You just have a different sacredness around the whole thing.
Absolutely. I think that sourcing element is what so many people don't have connection to when
Yeah.
it comes to where is their food coming from. That's the difference between the ancestral tribes that Weston A. Price
Yeah.
visits is local. How
Hyper
far away.
local.
So tell us, this integrates with the School of Lunch, school and like what you're doing in schools. But where do I guess can we back up a little bit and actually talk about the health of our children? You had mentioned a little bit, but do you have any other statistics about children's health today? What are kids
Yeah.
facing?
I mean, it's incredibly eye-opening when you really look at, I mean, you can hear the numbers like 54% or nearly 60% of our kids with a chronic disease. The autism levels are through the roof, and the metabolic health of just the population in general is terrible. And if you look around and you see people, it's like you start to see the dis-ease, right? People aren't thriving. And
Hmm.
so
I
I
see.
guess what
Yeah,
popped
go ahead.
into my head was what Natasha kind of explained is like when you think about like my microbiome or your microbiome or people who are having kids today compared to our great grandmothers or great great grandmothers microbiome, the richness and the diversity and the depth of every like all of that is so different because of the way that we've engaged with modern day, right? So our grandmothers, like when the baby goes through the birth canal, is when they really swallow a big gulp of, I mean, to put it in layman's terms, of bacteria, which is what pop is the first inoculation of their microbiome. So if you think of what we're, and a lot of kids, my kids are all C-sections, so they didn't even get that inoculation. So the baby is handed down, first of all, when I wrote my book too, there were like um 287 toxins in the cord blood of babies.
Wow.
So that was like 2014. So that's like they're starting out compromised, then they're inheriting poor gut flora or inheriting compromised microbiome. Then day one they get a vaccination, which I just heard today though that the CDC is not recommending the Hep B vaccine for day one of birth, which I
Wow.
think is great because I just
Yeah.
think let's give these babies a
Post
chance to like be born.
postpone it.
And yes. Um, and then they might get an ear infection, and then they might get a round of antibiotics, and they might not be breastfed, and then they're put on formula, and then they're starting out on processed foods, and then there's all the environmental toxins and things we can't control from like the materials in their clothes are made, all these things that are just stacking up, right? And so these poor kids, then they get another ear infection and another round of antibiotics, which wipes out, the whole microbiome basically. So they just can't get a leg up, right? And so if like my goal with School of Lunch and feeding these kids is to get to them as young as possible and normalize this way of eating and this feeling of feeling good so that they can grow up and have this foundation of health and that remembrance of what it feels like to feel good. I've watched my own kids go off to college and it's like terrifying because there really isn't much out there for them to make great decisions. But they know what it feels like. So my son would be like, Mom, I feel horrible after I eat this food. And most kids, I think it's just normal. Like they're just walking around just not feeling great. But,
Right.
I'd say a lot of the 20 somethings are struggling with something.
Oh yeah.
So we're at a moment where the younger we can get to these kids, the quicker we can start to reverse this trend. And so that they are giving birth to a healthier
Mhm.
next generation, right? If they set their microbiomes up now, then they have a chance to have, a healthier baby. And if
Mm.
these kids start to understand that they have agency, like I never knew what I was eating was really, I mean, of course, when you're pregnant, I guess you try to think about those things. I was clueless, like you spend a year planning your
Mhm.
wedding and you spend like no time thinking about preparing for a pregnancy.
Mm.
Like how much time do we really spend preparing our bodies? And that's what Dr. Price found is that they had these like special fertility diets, like increasing the organ meats and all these things that like are going to ensure a healthy, their tribe would go on, right?
Hmm.
So,
Lots of fat and
yeah,
yeah, it's
for the brains, but there's a lot of unwinding that we have to do, especially around fat, right? I mean, like I was
mhm.
so fearful of fat, and that's one thing I love about Gaps is like I bought like a quart of lard before we started. And I was like, oh my God, if you had told me that I was going to buy a quart of lard, I never would have believed you. And I thought it would last us like the whole diet. And then it was gone in like, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So we're just like putting it in like every bowl of soup and you just start craving. And now I eat like literally a stick of butter a day. I
Oh yeah.
just like
Oh yeah.
it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just want for everyone to know that fat is not, the devil that it's been
Yeah.
touted as. It's really what satisfies people, right? With those proteins and healthy fats. And that's why those kids, like the first year we started our program, we have a video on our website of this, but this little kid was like, I used to feel like this up and down all day long. And now I just feel like this. And his hand went straight across. And I was like, oh my
That's
gosh,
powerful.
like that's our 30-second ad right there.
Yeah.
Um,
And
because that's
it's
what we want is them to feel that feeling of being truly satisfied and not up and down and all over the place.
yeah, the blood sugar dysregulation in children is why it's why parents are always like rolling their eyes like, oh, my kids, like, or when someone comes up to you and they're like, oh, are you gonna have kids? And you're like, oh, I'm not sure. Well, and they're like, oh, maybe don't. Like,
Yes.
it's like
Because they're bonkers. These poor kids are like, they can't control themselves.
it's not their fault.
Oh,
I've seen kids growing up with stable blood sugars and they are zen. They are yeah, they're bundles of energy but they are so chill. Like they don't have
like the kids at
behavioral
school.
issues. Yes.
Yeah. They're all engaged and happy and look you in the eye. And,
Yeah.
they're not like depressed and anxious. Like,
Hmm.
they just, like you said, they're energetic, but they're
Hmm.
kids and they're outside, which is so nice. So I just
Yeah.
really, my dream is that we can kind of return back. And that I do think that people are starting to wake up. I think it's like,
Hmm.
even with social media, like it's just starting to drain people to the point where it's like, this is not normal.
This
It's not
isn't
natural, you know?
mm, these modern influences are killing us.
Yeah.
And we have to put boundaries on them or else
Yeah.
they're yes. So the diabetes in kids, like that's something I've also seen is kids are either really, really skinny, which means to me they're not absorbing their food and
Yeah.
nutrients from poor microbiome, and they have behavioral issues, like they're like screaming. I live
Yeah.
next to a school and
Oh,
sometimes it's like I
you're
love
like, what
it.
did they eat today?
Yes. Yeah. And then there's, some kids with diabetes are overweight and I feel so badly because there are so many statistics on the getting gestational diabetes during pregnancy has a huge risk for the child to develop diabetes early in life. And we're not just talking about autoimmune diabetes type 1, like diabetes type 2, which is so
Yeah.
curable with the diet and lifestyle and the mental health issues, autoimmunity, even in younger kids, cancer in children, like the behavioral issues, autism. So all of those things stem from those nutrient deficiencies. And I want you to share, uh, like, yeah, what are our kids eating in a traditional public school today, and where does it come from? Where does the
Oh
food
my
come from?
gosh. Well, we've outsourced our foods and there's no more scratch cooking. Like there's no, like the schools that I was working with in Massachusetts, they built three brand new elementary schools and put in all reheating kitchens. This was like 10 years ago. I'm like, why? Like no
Wow.
forethought to think like maybe we want to cook food. So that's one major issue. So we're outsourcing, our health by outsourcing our food. And I have this little neighbor who's like in fifth grade, who's been my like undercover op. She like comes and brings me the school lunches. I did a post on it. It's so disheartening. It is just like you see it on, TV or Instagram, or whatever, like a picture of a typical school lunch. But when you see it in person, it's really, really beyond what, it's unimaginable that any adult could think that this is okay. They're sugar bombs, it's all packaged, it's broccoli in a plastic bag.
Mm.
And like I set it out on my table and it doesn't like really mold. It just like sits there. Chicken
Oh.
like popcorn chicken and oatmeal that just looks horrible. Like it's all so highly processed. And then of course they have like Doritos and Takis, and the little girl showed me the little orange juice and it says like 100% pure orange juice. And then she's like, wait till you see this. And she pours it into a glass. It's like a juice box and it's clear. It's not even, I'm just like, what is this? You know, like it's so
Oh,
processed and so devoid of nutrition that no wonder our kids are so sick. And so many kids are relying on, there's like 30 million meals a day that are served in schools. And some of these kids, it's their only food. So
wow.
that's what their main source of sustenance is, and it's all junk. And
Mm.
so, we're just at this moment where it's like, hello, like we've got to wake up and change the system, and people have to decide that it's important. I mean, we've been trying to help people change school lunches for so long, and it's incredibly frustrating
Mhm.
because it's usually the parents that want the change. And then, um, unless you have a head of school that's like on board or a food service director that's on board, there's no way. It's too hard. They don't want to make the effort. They don't see that it's possible. They can't see that there's another way. And so I was like, I got my foot in the door at this small little private school, and I'm just going to show what's possible. And now I believe, like, I know it's possible. We just have to, we're smart people. We can figure it out. We have plenty of farmers that would be thrilled to have relationships with schools and supply, right?
Yes.
So it's like, it's a moment where I feel like, we've got people screaming from the rooftops saying, like, that, the health of our kids is the most important thing, which is exciting that people are thinking about it. So.
So, so important. And so, where you're talking about farmers connecting to schools, so where does your school get their food from? You said farmers markets, things like that. But what's a little bit of like this framework that you teach other people to implement into maybe their community schools?
Yeah, I mean, we have people that come from who are, school chefs to we've had like we just trained two 13-year-old kids this past summer, and we have like grandmothers, we have
Oh,
boys, girls, and moms, dads, all sorts of different people who want to change their churches, their schools, hospitals, you name it. So we welcome anybody who wants to come and learn. And what was your question? What do we teach? Oh, about
oh yeah,
sourcing.
sourcing.
Yeah, I mean, we source like 80 to 85% of our food from our local food system. And, we really dig around and try and find the best of the best that we can. But I obviously realize we're in California where we have like, it's like
A lot.
we have everything right in front of us. It's really beautiful and we're very lucky. But, we also um, can get certain things from like Chef's Warehouse, or we shop at Costco sometimes for certain things. So we get with the best of what we can in different areas, but most of it is sourced locally. So we have a couple shoppers that shop for us throughout the week. We go to probably 4 farmers markets each week. And that's what, I think is so beautiful because we developed these. Like when I started the snack program, I just told these farmers, like, I'm doing this for the kids. And they'd be like, here, I have a bumper crop of tomatoes, take it, or a bumper crop of zucchini, just give it to the kids. And I'd,
Cool.
develop these relationships and go back and make like zoodles or tomato soup for snack, just showing them and talking about the farmers and inviting the farmers in, and to talk about what they do and connecting the kids and the families to the farmers. And now it's like, now we're able to really put that money back into the farmers and have this weekly relationship with them where they can count on us to be ordering. And so that's what's super gratifying. Like last year we went to this conference in New Orleans, and we were like the featured speaker, I guess you'd say. And so they wanted to have the all the food aligned with School of Lunch. And so we worked
Mhm.
with the chefs, and the chefs like went out, it was like at the Hyatt, and the chefs went out and met local farmers that they hadn't met before. And they met this amazing rice farmer. And then they met another veggie farmer that decided that they would actually dedicate several acres of land just to the Hyatt and start growing for them. So that's how, like, when you start the conversations and you engage and you hear their stories, you want to. I believe people want to do what's best, right? And then you get invested because you like their story, you like that person, you want to see them succeed. And if we don't have our local farmers, then we're really beholden to, you know, big ag, and that's not where any of us want to be. So it's so important, I just say. And that's why we take people at the training academy to the farmers market.
Mhm.
in Santa Monica, which is probably the best in the country. But we show them our relationships and, the questions we ask to our farmers and the beauty and the fun and the joy that comes with when you hug a farmer, or shake their hand, and get to thank them for all that they do. And so
Mm.
I believe that. And then we take all the food that we get at the market, and we take it back to this house, and we show them how simple it is to, like, when you have beautiful ingredients, it's just not hard to prepare a
Mhm.
beautiful meal, right? It
Mhm.
all like real food doesn't take much of anything to be beautiful, right? It already is.
And it's so abundant, actually,
Yeah,
right?
it's abundant.
Yeah. I think about how food is life, and these connections to our farmers are, and the just the experience of going to a farmer's market. It's the best part of my week,
Yes,
when it's
it's so fun.
happening. And yeah, the uh, uh, getting people and kids, even like connecting those um, children to grow up in with that kind of mentality is so good for our local economies and their mental health, right? Like it brightens their day. Yeah, it's something to look
I have a
forward
tip
to.
about that though.
Oh,
My kids are like, I'm not going to the farmer's market with you ever again because I talk too much.
ah,
So I stand and I talk and I catch up, and then I run now, like, we know everybody. So we run into like everybody, and my kids are just like, oh my God, like we're never gonna get out of here. So they will go sometimes, but I'm like, trying to say to them now, like, you guys go on your own, like you
mhm.
can go without me and have your own experience. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool.
just make sure you like notice when the like that breaking point is there and be like, okay, we're gonna go.
Right, for the kids. Yeah. So that they're not bored. Yeah. Because they don't want to engage with those yet. They
Exactly.
will later.
They will
It's,
later, but
it's
it's
so
like when
great.
it's hot out and they're just like, oh my God, we've been here for 2 hours. Like, let's go.
That's awesome. Yeah. Know your kids. So I would love to hear a little bit more success stories from people in your program and who've, changed their communities. You were mentioning one in, especially in public schools. Like, has this been implemented yet?
Yeah. So, well, one in particular too, we had a woman who trained last summer and she went back. Her husband was a pastor at a church, and she went back and completely transformed the church dinners and church suppers because, like so many churches are serving the worst foods because those
Yeah.
potlucks and stuff, and there's
Yeah.
just no intention behind it, which doesn't make, if your body's your temple, you want to have like put
Mm-hmm.
really good food into it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she has been super successful with transforming her church. So that's inspiring. And then last summer, 2 summers ago, we trained a food service director from Florida, and their school found us online and they sent their food service director. And then this past summer, we raised money and we have had 10 of them come out, from the head of school, the assistant head of school, the bread baker, the lead chefs, the food service director, the food managers, the cashier, the dishwasher, jack of all trades, and the gardener. Like they all came out. So all points of contact with the kids. Like there's more that we want to train, but this like 10 top people came, and they were trained on like our values and our menus, and they really had a dose of what it's like to just drop into nature, like forget about your day to day, be super nourished and feel good. And so they all kind of were able to take that and go back to their school as this united front, which is really beautiful. And so now, so this is our public school pilot program in Florida. We've got 10 of them trained now, and we're working really hard to adapt our menus into their program. And so we have next week, which is very exciting, we have Dr. Joseph Latipo, who's a Surgeon General from Florida, is coming to the school to check out the program and hopefully put the momentum behind this pilot really taking off. Because as you know, like school lunches has been a big issue in this administration, and children's health. And so the dietary guidelines are hopefully about to change, and
Yes.
our menus are aligned with hopefully the recommendations for the new dietary guidelines. So we really, really, really want to show that this pilot is the model for the nation. And so we have Nina Teicholz, who wrote The Big Fat Surprise and has been instrumental in her recommendations to the dietary guidelines. She would do a clinical trial alongside of our pilot program to show that this way of feeding kids is keeping them healthy and reversing and preventing chronic disease. So we take their fasting insulin levels. So I know it's like incredible. So
That's so
we have,
great.
yeah, I know. So it's like a moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's really going to happen. And like we do need support though. So I was telling you earlier, we have Soul West Foundation, which is the nonprofit, which is helping our mission to get this pilot off the ground because it is massive from the clinical trial to the menu adjustments to documenting it all and flying back and forth. It's and training people. It's a massive undertaking, but I feel like if we don't do this now,
Mm-hmm.
then we might miss the moment, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's a big thing to change all the schools across the nation, but if we can just show that we can just show that it is possible, then
Right.
people can take this information and start to adapt it into their own programs.
Right. We need a uh like a case study to see
Yeah,
like
it's like
this is possible
yeah.
and
And
it
I
can
know.
be
Yeah.
replicated.
Yeah,
You
I
know it
know.
is.
It's like I see these kids just thriving, and I see, them so young asking for more sauerkraut and going home and talking to their parents about bone broth and fermented foods. And then it's like a bottom-up approach, I say. You get to the kids, and they are like, what is this? And they're excited about food. And then they go home and tell their parents. And then once a month, we invite the parents in for parents at lunch. And then we invite a farmer in or a food purveyor that we support. And then the parents get to experience what their kids are experiencing, connect to their local food system. And then it just becomes a united front at home and at school. And so you really have to change the culture. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking to do, really, is like we don't have a food culture. And my son's lacrosse coach said last year, culture precedes success. And that was like an aha moment for me because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why we're successful because we have a kitchen culture where we
Mhm.
say, check your ego at the door. Mission is the boss. Like our mission is to get as much nutrition into these kids every day. And then we have a food culture at the school where like everyone's in, like all the teachers are sitting down and eating with the kids are participating. It's just like the norm,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's like you have to have the culture change. And
Mhm.
that's where the joy, like I say, I started off saying we're disrupting the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kids. And now I say we're joyfully disrupting the trend of chronic illness.
Mhm.
So it's like bringing that joy and that spirit back to the kitchen and the fun
Yeah.
with cooking for even for your family or yourself or the community. It's so gratifying. And if we can just bring that joy back and sing and dance in our kitchens and not take everything so seriously and just keep it simple
Mhm.
and it's just the most beautiful things unfold. And when you see happy kids, when you get sick, it's like we've experienced this on, the up to the cancer level. So it's like you spend all your time and all your money chasing health. And you're
Yes.
just wishing if you could have prevented, then you're all of a sudden you're missing the baseball games. You're not able to coach soccer. You're not able to go. You're spending all your time in the doctor's office.
Yeah.
Or you're spending all your money on alternative things that,
Mhm.
there's a million opportunities and different options and people have a million opinions and then you're just overwhelmed and it's even more stressful. And so it's like, if we could just prevent, I promise everybody that is so much more, it's an easier path. And my $1 million question is how do we wake people up before the wake up call, before the frying pan to the head and the cancer diagnosis or
Mhm.
baby with eczema? But I come to realize I think it's human nature, honestly, to wait for the wake up call. Like we usually wait till something breaks
Yeah.
and then we're like, oh, yeah, now I have to wake up and fix. But if we can just get on the right track, and that's why I think getting to the children, they are the messengers. They want to feel
Mhm.
good. They're
Mhm.
going to tell their parents, and then that's how we start it all.
Yeah. And kids are wise. They're
They're so wise. They know. And they
yeah.
all know like the foods that are junky in these schools, they know that it's junk and they don't feel there's no love and connection or
Mhm.
thought that went into ordering that food. It's checking boxes.
Yeah. That's
We
why you said there was that stigma about being a lunch lady. Like
I know.
the kids make
I think
fun
it's the
of the
coolest
lunch
job.
lady
I know. Actually,
unless it's
the
good
Board of
food, you
Health
know?
lady was like, I think you should be wearing hairnets. And I'm like, I quit. I'm like, please don't make me wear a hairnet. I was like, I'll wear my baseball cap every day, I promise. But
Ah, good. Yeah.
I can't go back to like hairnets and like tights and like the blue
Mhm.
aprons or whatever. But it's the coolest job. And that's what I hope to inspire people is to like step into the work and like it doesn't have to be that like typical lunch lady. You
Stigma.
could really dive in and make a difference. Even one of our graduates is this adorable, like 27-year-old registered dietitian, real food registered dietitian. She came and did her internship in our kitchen, and she's working in a district with like 17,000 kids. And she was first in the farm to school side of things, and now she's like the assistant food service director. And she's like, you know, banging up against the wall or whatever a lot, but she's making changes where she can. And she sent me this text the other day that one of the students sent her that was like, the food today was amazing. There's like kids' Instagrams were going off with the school lunch. She put in like a pork shoulder, I think it was. And like everyone felt like that intention that there was something new and different and like home cooked.
Mm,
And the fact that like all these kids are like, Instagramming about it is like, so cool that she's making that difference. So
yeah.
no matter where you are, you can make a difference. And you have to stay in the joy, because if you don't
Mm,
feel like you're making a difference, or you feel like it's just hard work all day, then, you won't want to do it. But when you're able to just, keep it light, keep
yes.
it fun, be with good people, then it's the best.
I love that you added that joyfully disrupting that trend of chronic illness. And I resonate with being a disruptor because it's part of uh this is like such a tangent, but it's part of my astrology
Oh,
to be
really?
yeah,
Cool.
to be I mean my purpose here is to disrupt the health. Yeah, anyways, that's just
I
how
love
I
that. I've been
see it.
getting all into human design and
Yes.
gene
Yeah.
keys and all that stuff. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I think if we could just let go and not try so hard and just really know that it's like
Mm,
but once you kind of understand yourself a little bit better and can play to your strengths, and
yeah.
it's really cool. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure some people might be like, "What?" But if you dive down the rabbit hole, it's pretty like, "Oh, cool." It's very like liberating. It's just like, this is so cool. We're all here for a purpose, and
Mhm.
we have, like I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm just like
Cool.
out there like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
So
it. I know. Some people are going to be like, what the heck is that?
I know,
And
but you can't knock it till you try it, right? So like,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Just look into it. It
Yeah.
might
I
help
mean,
you
like
a little bit.
astrology, I get overwhelmed with that because I'm like, ooh, I
Yeah.
can't figure that out. But
I did human design more and then I have an astrologer I go to and she tells
yeah.
me stuff. So
So it's like there's so much cool. And if you look at like, okay, so this is one of the main things that I love people to walk away from our training academy with, is I say
yeah.
like the very first day, I'm like, if you remember one thing, I want you to remember this. And it's that you are Mother Nature. You are not separate. So like we look at things in nature as like perfectly designed, like the symmetry of a flower, or like the beauty of a mountain and the ocean, and all these things are animals. And you're just like, wow, this is like so cool. And then if we could turn the mirror on ourselves and have that same reverence and respect, if we could like unzip ourselves and see all the systems that are working every second of every day to keep us walking and talking and sleeping and thriving,
Mhm.
all the things, we might have a different respect for ourselves. Like we wouldn't water our plants with gasoline, right?
Mm,
Like, so why are we expected to thrive?
yeah.
So it's really like if you can kind of be out in nature as much as possible,
Yeah.
and be part of that, and just like check out and drop in. We're so removed from that and so disconnected, and our food is so disconnected. So, and then like with the phones and everything, it's like everything is designed to disconnect.
Right.
But our ancestors were really connected,
Mm,
right? And their sleep cycles, like all the things were like more intentional and more rhythmic, right? There was a rhythm. And now I
mm,
feel like with phones, there's no rhythm, because you can just be like staring at it till 3 in the morning if you want, and everything's disrupted. And the
mm,
food that we're putting in is our body doesn't even know how to recognize it and digest it and absorb the nutrition. If there is any nutrition, it's more like trying to detox it, right? And so
yeah.
if you just think about being a part of nature, how would you treat things
Mhm.
in nature, right? And
Yeah.
how did we evolve like over millennia, right? Like in the last 100+ years, we've just gone off the rails.
Mm,
And it's
mhm.
okay. We've become very efficient at providing food, quote unquote, to people, but we've become so efficient that it's at the expense of our health, of our
Yeah.
health.
Yeah. It's really just calories that we can provide. It's not
Yeah,
it's
it's
not that
not nourishment.
nourishment, right?
Overfed, undernourished. Yeah.
And I totally agree. And I feel like that might be, you might, I don't know what, I'd love to kind of wrap up our conversation with that last question to our listeners, for you to ask our listeners, for them to ponder this week. Um, uh, I don't know if it's the same one you just said about like just thinking about how we would have normally related to nature and like continue to ponder that. But
Yeah,
what
it
else
was
do you
kind of
have?
along those lines. Like, how would, if you could envision going back to 100 years ago and our children eating the way we ate 100 years ago, say 75 years ago, 100 years ago, what would that look like? What would our health look like? What would our children's health look like? What would our suffering be like? Would we be more communal still because food would be a priority? Um, like I
Yeah.
think it would be such a different society and we'd all feel much more fulfilled if we just return back to that one simple act of preparing food together and nourishing ourselves and our communities. It's so life-giving on so many levels. It's not even just the nourishment of the calories, it's the sitting down and like breaking bread, quote unquote, with your community and your people. And that's why like family dinners are so important. That's where you decompress and can say, how was your day? And just check in with everybody. And
Mhm.
we've just disconnected from those traditions. And so, yeah, the question would be, what would it look like if we returned back to how we ate 100 years ago?
Mm. Please think about that more, everyone. I know I think about it all the time.
With a modern day twist, right? We can make it, that's what I say, like we're like,
Yeah.
traditional
Dream
methods of
big.
cooking with a modern day twist. Obviously, we have to live in this world. Like
Hmm.
my the woman who ran my health food store in Massachusetts would say to me, because I'd be so like amped up, like, oh, what should I buy? Like, like trying to do everything perfect. And she's just like, Hillary, we have to live in this world. So you have to bless many things. And
Hmm.
I really think stress is the number one cause of disease. So I think, keep that mindset that don't make it stressful, make it joyful.
Joyful.
And start with one thing. If you're eating a standard American diet right now, just source a chicken or buy a roasted chicken already. Like just start to think about it and start to make it a priority. Find your local egg farmer and get to a farmer's market or have a conversation with your family. Just little things. Like you can't do it all at once, you'll go ballistic. So you just,
Hmm.
find friends that are like-minded and
Hmm.
there are a
Yeah.
lot of people out there like us that are trying to inspire people. And so reach out, like DM me, like I'm
Yeah.
so accessible. If you need a little bump of, inspiration, like, we just want to help more people. So just
Absolutely.
connect. That is one good thing about the internet, I would say, is that we get to connect with really cool people across
Right.
the globe, which is cool.
Yes, we will probably never go back, to 100 years ago. And so, but we can dream big to reimagine, like integrating those traditions again. And um, I mean, there's so much creativity that we can tap into with
Yeah.
solving these problems that we are all facing in our communities of health issues, socioeconomic issues. Like there's so much that I remember a quote that I heard that most of our problems in society could be fixed with a garden. And I totally agree, except for you need people to eat the food in the garden. And I also would incorporate a ranch there too, like animal input there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Sally would say like, it would be dreamy if you could go back to like the community where like one person's making Sally found from Weston Price.
Yes.
She'd say one person's growing the veggies and one person's raising the pigs and one person's doing the chicken and one person's doing the dairy. And then you like, one person's
Share.
making the sourdough, whatever it is. And then you
Yeah.
all collaborate and, in community and because you can't
Mhm.
do everything yourself. But when you,
Yeah.
I really do think there's so much magic that just comes from being out in nature again and getting your hands in the dirt and um seeing a garden grow from seed to finish is so cool. I mean, the biggest little farm
Yes.
Those guys are friends of ours, and they helped us get started at this with the school garden. They just returned back this past year, Molly and John, and they were telling the eighth graders, like, you guys, we have this small little plot. I mean, it's like quarter of an acre maybe, and they're like, you guys know more about gardening than we did when we started our farm.
No.
Because you don't need, because the kids were like, how can we get to be big like you guys, and he's like, this is all you need right here. When you
Mm-hmm.
get bigger, more problems come, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you might be doing more management and not getting your hands in the dirt. So that little plot that they're all able to tend and see things really come to fruition, and the compost from the kitchen going up to the garden, all those things, like they see this closed looped system. So
Mm-hmm.
these kids are really knowledgeable about growing their own food, which is so cool. So you don't need to have some big operation. I'm always like, oh, I'm going to go to the grave, never starting the farm. Like I always think I want to live on a farm, and then I get scared because I'm like, I don't really know anything about farming. But
Yeah.
I have this desire to just go back to that,
Yeah.
simplicity, and
Yeah.
just have to get my helpers in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great inspiration because it's recognizing your part of being a small it's like like a cell in your body, right?
Yeah,
It does its own function. It focuses on its little, plot of land and
yeah,
and it does what it needs to do, but it's for this greater good and this bigger picture of a functioning body. And that's like our communities and the work you're doing is amazing. Thank you so much for
thank you.
sharing. The stories that you're sharing are so powerful, and everyone can go take a look. Oh, also the Biggest Little Farm that you mentioned was the a great documentary on a sustainable farm and how they went to, more organic and regenerative and overhauled
It's
theirs. Yeah,
amazing. I
it's a
mean, this,
great.
if the people haven't seen it, they should really run to go see
Yeah.
it, because it's like the cinematography is genius and the storytelling is so great. And they're
Mhm.
just really good, salt of the earth people that,
Mhm.
really show the power of returning, letting nature do its thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Really big lessons that we can learn.
Yeah.
Are there any other things you'd like to share that we missed that you really want to talk
I
about?
guess so. Well, our training academy is coming up June 14th through the 19th. This year, 2026. I think we might only do one because we're doing this pilot program in Florida. So there's like 15 spots available. So if people want to come to that, it is life-changing. I promise you, in 5 nights you'll be fully changed and like ready to go and on your way. Um, so that's on our website, schooloflunch.com, under Training Academy. And then the Soul West Foundation, soulwest.org, is where people can go to support our mission. And like I said, this pilot program is so important to get off the ground. And so any way people can support, share our message and our mission, we so appreciate it. And on Instagram, School of Lunch, I'm always singing and dancing in the kitchen at the school in Topanga, and just showing what's possible, and hoping to inspire people. But I'm super accessible, so DM me or email me. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely, Nutrition with Confidence likes to donate at the end of the year to a nonprofit. So I'll definitely be
awesome.
donating.
Oh,
Anyone
thank
who wants to join, please do. And because
you.
as you said, we cannot miss this moment. Our
Right?
children's health and future generations of health really depend on it.
And I think the momentum is really there. Like, I do think enough people, like the critical mass of people that have woken up to the power of food, and that our children are so sick,
Yeah.
that this is like school lunch is the way, it's the gateway into a healthier next generation. Because, like I said, it's 30 million meals a day. So, like, imagine if we change the nutrition, the change of health would be so, and it can happen fast,
Yeah.
can happen fast, and we'll just look back and be like, can you remember when we used to feed these kids this like poison? Like, what
Right.
were we thinking? Now,
Yes.
but now it's so beautiful. So
Oh,
I feel very hopeful.
me too. Me
So
too. Awesome, Hillary. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, keep doing the great work.
I will, for sure.